Brexit has been one word or one topic that we have always been discussing every time we were in a meeting since 2016. Of course, 2020 somehow coronavirus or COVID overtook, and that was the point of discussion for every meetings and every sessions. But I think Brexit definitely remained the center point of a lot of discussions and analyzing what's going to happen, understanding what's going to happen post Brexit was important. It's a mixed bag, to be very honest, and it's early days at this point, of course. But then, if I have to look at it from a very objective point of view, in the current set of happenings, I think it's a mixed bag. If you look at it, a lot of Indian companies, tech companies, startups that are in the UK or headquartered in the UK, and were basically European headquarters and not just the UK offices. Brexit will take away this advantage from these companies and these startups, and that is what is flip side for startups now. They will have to look at establishing themselves fresh in the EU as well as continue their operations in the UK. So that's definitely something that is a step back for them. Another drawback is that due to the uncertainty around the value of the pound, Indian exports of services are going to suffer. A cheaper rupee will make Indian exports, including IT and ITES, competitive. Indian import or companies that are importing into India or operating in the UK will also look at reporting a loss. So, um, you know, uh, the Indian exports at this point are higher as compared to the Indian imports. And hence, there is a point of worry around it as well. But it's not all as bad as it looks. Of course, I'll go into details a bit later. But if you look at on the positive side, a lower pound value means Indian startups would be able to acquire uh, more high-tech assets at a lower cost here in the UK. It would be easier for them to look at existing businesses or getting into partnerships and getting going in the UK market if they're new entrants as well. Um, as you know, investors look around for companies which are safer to invest in these turbulent times. Indian startups stand out both in terms of stability and, of course, in terms of growth due to the ecosystem available in the country. And that would also mean that UK investors, if they're looking at bringing in new companies from other geographies into the UK, might look at India as a possible option as well. Um, Brexit at this point, of course, there has been discussion about the boost in the trade ties between India and the UK. Um, Again, Brexit has created some avenues for business opportunities, but let's see. It's a mixed bag at this point of time, and we hope we get the better of the Brexit and a good enhanced trade partnership, as was discussed during the recent phone call between the prime ministers as well. We're looking at things to get better for startups in 2021 and beyond. You know, as the Brexit deal stands at this point, it's something which is very interesting. It makes a level playing field for a lot of startups and a lot of businesses from India in sectors like IT, R&D, architecture, financial services. There is quite a lot that we could gain in both the markets. I'm not just saying from the UK point of view, but also from the EU as well. So, for example, if there's a tech startup, uh, which is uh, competing with a EU company, it would be possible for the tech startup to probably look at, providing a better service at a lower cost, and would be able to, establish themselves in the UK more faster as compared to any other, country as well. So that's a very easy or a low hanging fruit if you look at. Um, again, Indian companies or Indian tech startups who have headquarters either in the UK or in the EU, um, uh, of course, they would be facing challenges, as I said earlier, in terms of the restriction of movement of professionals and stuff. But again, this also provides an opportunity for tech startups which are providing solutions to these kind of problems. And I know of some startups in India that are providing solution to these kind of issues as well. So I think that will be something which would be positive again for Indian startups going further as well. One of the major sectors that we could look at is, the growth of the edtech sector as well as SaaS as well as healthcare sector in India has been phenomenal in 2021. We've seen a lot of health tech startups coming up, and with the increased pressure on the NHS, there is a lot of scope for Indian tech startups or health tech startups to look at UK as a very promising market going further. Telemedicine, or even looking at radiology and other things, it is a market that we could look at, and there is a potential opportunity for startups from these sectors as well. In terms of challenges for Indian startups or businesses that are currently operating in the UK, one is, of course, there's a lot of paperwork for business at this point. If they are operating in the EU UK corridor, there's a lot of paperwork that they have to look at. I think that's not something that in the current scenario where startups are struggling in terms of getting people to work remotely, it is an additional burden. Of course, there are also new set of rules for companies that are trading with Belfast. So again, this is another problem that there is. Also, in terms of costs, there are a lot of costs that have got added. For example, um, as simple as uh, mobile data. If you're non-essential travels to the EU, whenever they resume, or even business travels when they resume, post the pandemic, mobile roaming is going to be chargeable, and this is an added cost for every time you travel into the UK. So that's another thing. I'm just looking at, the day-to-day issues, and I'm going to go to specifics a bit later. In terms of movement of manpower, there is a problem. You can't easily move around your people. If they are working, you would have to have visas for them as well. One another practical problem that has come up is, if you are a UK headquartered Indian startup and you hold a .eu domain, you will not be able to renew it anymore. So you will have to have exclusive domains for both these regions. Also, you will not have access to personal data from the EU. The GDPR rules would apply, and hence there is something that would be a problem when it comes to startups which are working on data. So that would be a problem going further. In terms of larger problems that we look at, a lot of Indian startups at this point are are also looking at getting funding from high street banks. Post Brexit, with the additional pressures on banks' balance sheets, it will make it difficult to get business loans in terms of it being more expensive. Also, before Brexit, it was possible for you to look at a EU investor investing into the startups which are based in the UK as well. Um, Again, that's a huge chunk of investors that has now gone off. It is only looking at UK investors itself, so that is definitely a gap. Also, there are a few, things. For example, at this point, there's a lot of uncertainty, not just because of Brexit, but also in terms of the coronavirus thing as well. So the markets are quite volatile. The economy world over have slowed down. So securing new businesses or securing any kind of business now has become a challenging thing as well. So uh, just to maintain the flow of business itself is at this point very difficult. UK also needs to put in place its own late payment directive, as currently bankruptcy solutions and protection is only applicable to the EU members, particularly in case of EU investors into UK small businesses. So you that is another technical drawback that needs to be looked at. Export tariffs would be another issue or challenge that startups will face from a from a pricing standpoint. And most importantly, Brexit has seen a lot of businesses move out of the UK. Um, so this where potential clients or startups used to cater to these companies. With the movement of these companies out of the UK, there is a loss of business, and probably a lot of startups might have to reconsider their strategy towards this. They might have to look at relocating or having parallel offices as well, which is an additional cost for startups. At an early stage, you might not want to invest so much into it. So that is going to cause a lot of startups to rethink their UK strategy. But I think all in all, there are positives as well. Coming back to the positive, and I would want to leave on a positive note, that UK is now a new market altogether, where it's a level playing field for Indian startups, with visa policies that have changed from the 1st of January as well, which I will talk in my subsequent columns as well. The visa policy itself is attractive enough for startups to now look at UK as a market. They might want to consider that. So given this, it's still not as bad as we were thinking for Indian startups to look at UK as a prospective market.